began to put together ideas about this conference, one of the goals that we had for this conference, and we continue to have for all of our conferences, is a way to pass along lessons learned, and a way for people that are, I'll say, my age and older, for us to sort of get a chance to download a little bit about our lives and maybe lessons we've learned and things like that. So we started looking around at some clinicians and decided to ask these three wonderful people to share a letter from a younger me. What would I say to some other people that I've learned? What have I learned in my life? What would I say? And so we've asked Nan Grantham, Joe Martin, and Kid Medema to share this afternoon. So they're going to share for a few minutes, and then we can have a time to dialogue with them about maybe some of the things that they've mentioned, or we can ask some questions. But you know, one of the things that I'm really particularly interested in is how do we do what we're doing for a long time? Because I'm a little bit like some other folks have said this week. I've had such a good life and have a lot of fun and have loved doing what I do, and have considered it just a sheer joy to get to do the things that I've gotten to do. And I don't want to stop them soon. I want to continue to do those things. But I'm looking at particularly the folks on my left side of the room, and noticing that I've been noticing your careers for a long, long time. And I'm very curious about what it takes to keep on being vibrant. So I'm very much looking forward to this. So I don't know what our order is. Have you all decided an order?
We have not talked, we haven't even talked about it yet.
Okay, you haven't decided on an order. Well, why don't we start with who I think is our youngest panelist, and start with Joe. So you all can talk about who goes next over here. So.
I want to go on record as saying this was a terrible idea. Now, I'm not really sure what the rules and regulations of this letter was supposed to be, because I've really never done anything like this, but as I started to do it, it got more interesting, and really surprised me how interesting this project was. Well, I decided, and I don't know if this breaks the rules, you just tell me, but I decided to write it to my 10-year-old self. At a specific time in my life. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but here we go. Dear Joseph Michael, I hope your 10th birthday was a good one. I have decided to write you a letter from the future as a sort of belated birthday gift. Surprise. Joe, I have some very good news for you. You are going to live at least 60 years, guaranteed. Use this information wisely. I realize, however, that I need to be careful with what I say to you in order to protect the space-time continuum. Well, I mean, think about it. But since you won't know what that is for 20 years, I'm going to take my chances. Life is good for you here in the future. If I tried to explain it all now, you would never believe it. I know you just saw men land on the moon. Now, that's a big deal, but it's just the start of the wonders you will experience in the days ahead. It will all be a magnificent journey of discovery, and you will be gobsmacked by what lies ahead. Now, I know things are tough right now for you. You have every reason to be angry and confused. You know how you sometimes feel very different from the other kids? Well, it is true. You do hear and see things very differently from everyone else. Now, your special abilities are like walls that separate you from your classmates and friends, but one day, these things will be a bridge for many meaningful relationships and experiences. Even though you're on the outside of things right now and your close friends are few, in the future, one of your greatest blessings will be the many friends who will surround you every day. In fact, you have dear friends all over the world. One day, your devotion to music will be rewarded, and you will work in a business where even your competitors are friends. Your peers will encourage you and celebrate you and even pray for you. This is a rare and precious thing in this world, and you will appreciate it even more deeply because you will remember these lonely times. During the tough times, remember to choose conversation instead of confrontation. You will learn so much by being calm and alert during moments when conflicts arise. Just listen and learn. Now, you're probably wondering what you will do with your future. And if you think about it, 10-year-old Joe you have always known. Music is going to choose you, and she will be the love of your life. The secret songs you are already hearing in your heart will never leave you, and music will always be your comfort and joy. It will be the voice of your faith, and it will feed your body and your soul through the years. Actually, I still play that song you wrote last year. I've added a few extra notes to make it fancy, but I think you would like it. Remember, as this relationship with music grows, never forget the simple beauty it brings into your life. Never let elitism or arrogance draw you away from your truth. Run away from that. It's the enemy of creativity. Remember, you don't become successful through criticism of others, but through personal craftsmanship. Share what you learn and respect the songs of others. Always strive for excellence without arrogance. Try to remain humble and grateful that you were chosen to be a keeper of the song and pass it along. God is going to guide you through a variety of experiences to learn from. Some good, others not so much. You will learn how to make people laugh, and that will open a lot of doors, since most people in your line of work have been baptized in pickle juice. You will also learn how to pour your pain into your pen, and that will bring you comfort and healing during the times when it will be hard to find a cheerful thought. You will use your scars as a testimony to God's healing in your life. You're going to get to go to college in several years and major in music. You will actually be much younger than your classmates. And though this will be a challenge, it will also let you fully focus on your passion. You will be dazzled by art, philosophy, poetry, history. It will be a golden time. Now, just a little advice. On your way to Furman, you are going to stop for gas at the Luckadoo filling station on Highway 85. Do not get the sushi. I repeat, do not. And just for your information, no, you will not be able to clean the upholstery. Just go ahead and buy a new car. I know right now your family life is, well, it's not always perfect. Dad will always be tough on you. He doesn't understand what you're hearing or dreaming, and that will make you sad sometimes. I know it's important to you. You really want to make him proud. Well, he is very proud of you, but he sometimes screams at what he doesn't understand. He's scared for you because you're unusual. He's going to push you hard, and in his own way, he will teach you to survive and thrive when things are tough. He does love you deeply, and he wants to be your hero. Remember to let him know that he was. He's going to tell you one day, Joe, you will never be the best at anything. Just don't let him outwork you. And that was the best advice I ever got. He will teach you about business and speaking in public. Listen to him, because he'll open doors for you, because your words will be important later. Mom understands you, however, very well, and that actually makes her sad sometimes. She has an artist's heart, and she knows that you must choose to experience life deeply. Both sorrow and celebration will be the nourishment you need for your music. Now, young Joe, you are blessed in so many ways. You will have the best brother and sister in the world. Oops, I guess I have to tell you now. Mom's pregnant. I know, gross, right? I'm still trying to wrap my mind around how that happened, but remember, as you grow, to protect your fingers, you can always count on them. Try to balance ministry, artistry, and industry. Don't worry about accumulating things, but gather to yourself moments, because moments are greater treasures. Be encouraged, because your work you will love your work as an adult. Every day will be new, yet familiar, and you will receive the satisfaction of seeing your creative efforts make a difference in people's journey of faith. This is priceless. Things I want to save you from. Forget about growing a mustache. You will just look like a fat Mark Spitz. Save the X-Men comics you're reading right now and put that Fantastic Four #1 in a bag. Sharon Fisher is going to totally break your heart. Avoid her at all costs. On second thought, she gave you your first real kiss. Totally worth it. Ask her out. One day you will travel all over the world sharing your song. Please listen to me, Joe. Learn as many languages as possible. You will want to say something to those beautiful faces. However, your attempts at French will be a failure. While trying to order a cheese omelet in Paris, you will ignorantly tell a waiter his wife looks like a penguin. He will take your picture for the wall in the break room. And no matter how hard you try, you will always sound like Larry the Cable Guy praying before the offering. Just go with that. It makes you slightly eccentric, and the girls will love that. Well, I think they will. I know you'll be curious about things, but worried about the space-time continuum thingy, but I'm delighted to tell you that you have two amazing kids when you're older. No poetry ever written or symphony composed can explain what that feels like. On that day, every terrible moment in your life will melt away into a lullaby that will change your music forever. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, some things you're experiencing right now will continue to be challenging for you. By the time you get to be 60, you will be a stained glass window, broken and stained. Just let God arrange the pieces into something new and it'll all turn out. Jesus is faithful and graceful, and his light can still shine through all those colors and cracks and create something beautiful. Life will be a full e-ticket ride for you. Jeers, tears, and more than a few cheers are just around the corner. Enjoy the ride. Learn to be patient while standing in the line. It's all worth the wait. Remember, life is wonderfully wild, but perfectly in process. Be faithful to your song, and joy will always find you. And speaking of joy, you know how obsessed you are with Disney World, Disney movies, and Disney princesses? Well, you're not going to believe how that turns out. Trust me, little Joe, awesomeness. Be strong, Joseph Michael. There is much to learn and work to be done. Dream, believe, become. Always be true to your calling and be grateful for your uniqueness. Celebrate your song and remember to let music live. Hey, maybe you better jot that phrase down. You might need it one day. You are loved. Happy scales to you. Your forever friend, Joseph Michael, age 60.
The class is over. We did it. We did it.
Okay, who's next?
I'll be next. I'll ask Beverly to read the letter that I wrote because I don't remember what I wrote. It was months ago. And this is written not with a specific age in mind, but this is written to my younger self, probably 15, 20 years younger, not that much younger. But it says things that really needed to be said. And it says things that I am still dealing with today. And so, here we go.
Dear Ken, I remember so well the heady excitement of those concert nights when a large church congregation was waiting for you to hit the stage. You were quite something then, weren't you? You were courted by a big record company, at least for a while. You were touted as an advocate for social justice, and you sang at some of the biggest and more prestigious churches around. You were also in many ways an angry young man. Sometimes you would bang out your message in long concerts that would sometimes reach a fever pitch as you climbed all over the church for being insensitive to the needs of the hopeless, homeless, and hungry. You were also enchanted with your life in San Francisco, and you behaved very recklessly. You ate too much, you drank too much, you thought you could get away with a kind of liberty that hurt other people. And you had to crash before you could see the truth of who you were and what you were doing. These days, things are different. You're not working in many of those big churches anymore. You're not pounding out your message with big angry strokes, and you have learned a bit about faithfulness and loyalty. I wish I could go back and apologize to so many people who were hurt by me and to so many people who were subjected to my self-righteous performing. I know even in those years I was useful to the kingdom of God, but let me tell you, I am very, very glad to have come down from that high horse. I look forward to many more years of singing and telling the stories of people who are learning what it means to live truthfully and lovingly. These people are my teachers, and I always want to be their storyteller and their student.
I guess that means me.
Yes, it does.
What a following. Okay, dear Nan, there's a great big wonderful world out there ahead of you, and I'm so glad that music was a part of your life. Your family, your church, listening to the radio, piano lessons, even from a family friend, and you had to change teachers when the lessons went up from $6 a month to $8 a month. Your parents were supportive, though neither of them had professional training beyond what was offered in their day. Studying music in college seemed a natural thing to do. A degree in music education offered the opportunity to, number one, teach school, number two, teach piano lessons, and number three, work in church music. So I have to stop here and say, if I were to do it again, I would do many of the same things. Because I thought with that degree, I would be able to do those three things, and that really happened. I taught school until I had children. I taught piano lessons in our home during their early years with them up in the upstairs room inside the gate. And I wonder, though, if that had anything to do with my son having perfect pitch. I evolved into various church music positions when they became teenagers and very active in church. So, if anyone is interested in pursuing such a career, I have always worked, but never had to hire babysitters. And guess what? God put a bonus in composing. Now, about things I would do differently. I don't think I could change generations, but I missed out on Orff and Kodaly training, partly because of the time and where I was at the time, and the opportunities and locations for training. So if you plan to work with children in music, what a valuable asset. It may seem above and beyond, but it is something that you should make happen. Set your goals for this. It will help in the children's music experiences. Would I study harder, practice longer? Of course. I cannot imagine anyone who would not profit by good keyboard skills. And I will certainly tell any of you vocal majors that I remember as a graduate assistant teaching ministers of music, some were grudgingly going through piano lessons as a seemingly unnecessary skill. Practice rooms are lonely, but that's where you must be to maximize those skills. I never heard anyone say, I wish I hadn't practiced so much. Learn from others. Identify those in your area with a good reputation, good children's choirs, since that's where I've spent most of my years. Arrange to sit in on their sessions, attend choir festivals, offer to accompany choirs if that's possible. If possible, I would be more generous with myself, church budget-wise. Be selective in your choosing, but attend workshops or conferences to increase your skills and keep up with the times. It is so easy to become involved in your own work that you forget new methods and skills are a constant. Sit under others. Again, don't be too busy to give yourself this boost. Set up exchange programs with other choirs. Maybe learn the same anthems and exchange directors for a rehearsal or two, and then come together for a combined rehearsal and concert. And I would do that Christmas Round the Town tour that we never got to do. Works better in a small town where churches are close, but one choir goes to a sister church and sings a few carols, and then they join in and go to another church and sing a few carols, and they keep moving and moving until they are all in. It requires carpools, but it promotes fellowship between churches, and all wind up together with hot chocolate and a carol sing along with the parents. I would work to develop good cooperative efforts with children's workers in other areas of the church, youth, adult, whatever the age. We're all in this together, so know their hearts and their needs and pray together. Now, my Baptist upbringing did not include dancing, so I still feel like a klutz when it comes to choreography, but it's a vital part of music. An expression can be glitzy or it can be beautifully sacred, but it's a wonderful tool. And then there's simple thing, but a skill that I would certainly wish to improve if I were to do it again. Learn names, associates, choir members, children. Everyone likes to know they're important to someone. I read a definition of a child's definition of a teacher's love. The child said, "My name is safe in her mouth." If I were to do it again, I would try to open my eyes in all directions and not get so wrapped up in my own busy life that I think I have all I need or all I can handle. And this includes family. It's a busy life, so don't be afraid to write family on a date on your calendar. And then when someone asks you for something, you can say, "Let me check my calendar. I'm sorry, but I have something that night." Don't take for granted those you love the most. And really, if I were to do it again, I wouldn't change a lot. Having a job that is uplifting and that has you working with volunteers in many or most cases that do what they do because they want to serve, that's a wonderful privilege. Be thankful, live it, love it, and show it. And Nan, if you do this, you might sit at a table with Ken. Me and my
Well, I am speechless. That was absolutely beautiful from all three of you. Wow. I will just say to you, if you paid to come to this conference, that was worth it, I hope, for you to come for that one moment, for this moment. Wow, what we can learn from each other. And I know Ken has through the years been such an advocate for storytelling. And here we have an example of why storytelling is so important. I think I can survive for a long time on the stories I've heard today, and I can be inspired in a lot of moments as I go into the fall and go into this year from just the words that we've heard today. That's so what a rich, rich time. And thank you all. Wow.
You know what was interesting to me is as I did it, I was surprised at how it impacted me. I got choked up writing that thing. I wonder if I hadn't done, nobody had mentioned it to me before. I thought, oh, this is a chance to be funny. And that's kind of what I went into it in a lighter way. And then I went, wait a minute, I'm 10 years old, there's some stuff here that I bet they, okay, then I started writing it. And I tried a couple of drafts, I tried to write on Sue, and a couple of them I just stopped in the middle of it because there was some unresolved things. It was teaching. I mean, I learned from what I heard, but I learned from doing the exercise. I might recommend it to you if you're kind of just, I think you find it very interesting. I certainly did.
For me, the material was stuff that I've been thinking about a lot, but I don't talk about it. There just aren't many venues where you can be that honest about who you are, especially in the church world. I mean, there are a few. I mean, there are people, but one doesn't say those things in concert, really, unless you're Bruce Springsteen and people are paying $1,000 to hear you in the theater in New York, and then you can say whatever the heck you want. But it was cathartic experience, I think, to get this out. And to realize that, you know, I'm at the place now where I've been around long enough. I don't have to defend myself anymore. I don't have to play games anymore. What are they gonna do, fire me? So I felt like okay, I can say this stuff that has been real close to the chest for years, and look back at some really difficult times for me, and be able to say this to people who, some of whom have gone through some of those same that same stuff, you know. So
Well, they toss this phrase around, I bet everybody's heard it, say, your personal truth. And usually, if you're on stage at all, or in front of people, and I get to do that, you control that portal, your narrative, yes, you control it, and you present it because that's an important part of being successful and responsible for your career. And I think what Ken said was exactly right. You just kind of all of a sudden you go, you know what, that's something I have sort of, well, like for instance, the part with my father, who, and because he was in ministry and he was my spiritual mentor, and yet we had this conflict, I think that really, I don't present that. You said not in concert, that's not concert stuff, because that would, like, and I paid for this, to hear him go through therapy in front of me.
How many people could learn from that?
Yeah.
If we dared to say those things, there's going to be, in any given audience, there's going to be, 25 or 30 people who had father conflicts who are going to say, whoa, it happened to Joe Martin.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm not so unusual that it happens to me. But somehow we shy away from those things. And maybe, I mean, the thing that comes out here for me is maybe there's an article by Joe Havlovich about why kids are leaving churches. And one of the things he said is that kids are leaving churches because churches are silent about important issues. Issues like this, issues like father issues and mother issues.
Somebody said, nobody, I think we're talking about sacred art, nobody wants to hear or see your trophies. They want to see you, touch your scars.
Yeah.
They want to know that. And it's really true, but we that's a really tough place to be, personally.
It is.
To be vulnerable
Yeah.
and exposed in that regard.
It is.
Nan, what was it like for you to write this?
I
Piece.
with him, I thought, well, that's interesting, and I sat down and I started, and it was just really a good experience. I really do want to join you in saying you ought to do it, because it makes you go back and just see God guiding you and your blessings. Oh my, I was blessed because it reminded me of that.
A long time ago, I worked with a colleague when I was teaching in the seminary, when I was quite a young person. And he said that we see God through the rearview mirror, that faith is always about, that seeing God through the rearview mirror. It's never about God in front of us. That in front of us is always just taking a step into the dark, into what we don't know. But the rearview mirror is where we see God. It's where you can say, oh, that's what was happening. God was there. And I think that's some of what I hear in this experience. I would like to thank you all for being so vulnerable and for actually sharing some pain in this, and not just talking about all the good things that happened, but actually sharing the pain. And I think that's a place where we're all longing for safe places to live some of the tough things in our life. And I really appreciate you all being willing to do that. Would you all be willing to share your age with us today?
Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead. I told her she sounded like 60.
Yeah. 83.
The age of my mom.
This is my child.
That was my mom's 83 too, Mom. You could be my mama.
Yeah, I knew it. How about this? I'm gonna add that to my resume.
Just got some adopted children.
I did pretty well.
That's great.
Yeah, you did doggone well. I'm 75
Wow.
and feel more energetic, more excited about singing than I have for years. I feel like I've learned a bunch of lessons. I'm coming into some really great years. And one of the big things I noticed, I really went through a lot of time when I had to prove stuff. And there have been several experiences that have changed it. Last week we did a retreat for church ministers of music. We called it Interlude. And there was a young guy there who was in his 30s. And every time we were near a piano, he had to sit down and play it. Because you want people to hear you. And you have this need to expose what you do, to be heard, to be listened to. And there are some other needs that I had that I felt like I had to prove myself. I worked really, really, really hard. Sometimes I would do an entire concert just because one person was there and I wanted to impress that one person. I mean, so an interesting story that came out of a seminar, and I told this story to kids last night. In year 2012, I went to TCDA. And I got to do the worship night. My wonderful friend helped me, conducted for me. We had a nice choir of singers. The next morning, Craig Halla-Johnson, many of you will know Craig Halla-Johnson, the Conspirare, wonderful choral director, awesome choral figure, hero of many, man from another planet, genius beyond words, was going to do a seminar. And so I thought, I want to go to this seminar. And I carried with me an albatross that I've been carrying with me around my neck. I have been thinking for years and years and years, you have to write a major work. Because that's what composers do, right, Joe? If you're a composer, that's what you write a major work. And I have not done it. I've sat down, I've given time to it, I've gotten ready for it. I've even had people say, we can commission you to do this and this and this and this big thing. And so it was that I went to this seminar wearing this albatross around my shoulder thinking, well, let's see, maybe I can get inspired here. 200, 300 choral directors, maybe I can get an idea from this genius choral director. And I walk in the room, and you know what's going on at TCDA seminar. People looking around, yeah, they got more money in their school district than I have, man. I got better tenors than you have. So all this is going on in the room. And Halla-Johnson walks out and sits down at the piano and starts plunking. Not even his elegant playing. And he starts singing. In not his best voice. Just an ordinary voice that you would use if you were showing somebody in the closet. Sing, sing a song, sing it clear. And then the last line, don't worry, if it's not good enough for anybody else to hear, just sing. And the albatross flew off my shoulder. You don't have to write a major work. He said 3 words. The words were, you are enough. And I'm like, I've been spared. I've been saved. I don't have to write a major work. I just need to do what comes to hand. And that, along with some other experiences, have finally brought me to the place where I'm not the little blind boy who has something to prove anymore. I'm not the little kid who's sad because the neighbor boys won't play with him, and I gotta find some way to be loved and please all the people. I'm not at that place anymore. I'm at a place now where I can say, this is mine to do, and that is not. And it's all right. And I see so many. I mean, I'm in somebody's church every week. And you see it too, you guys see it too. You see the music director who is on the treadmill, out to make a difference, out to prove this and this and this, out to make the best, we're gonna have the best church choir in Houston. That would be a trick, wouldn't it? I mean, there's so many doggone church choirs in Houston. You know, or think about North Dallas. Think about trying to have the best church choir in North Dallas. Holy moly! That's something that will drive you into the grave, because it's impossible. And so I see these ministers of music, these sometimes young, sometimes middle-aged, trying to make it, trying to do this great thing, trying to beat the competition, trying to be heard, trying to be seen. And I'm thinking, Medema, you did that for all those years. And you finally, at your age, got to the place where you can say, no, that's not what I need to do. I need to be in a little upper room on the island of St. Thomas with 13 kids who are in a mental hospital, and they're schizophrenic, and they're autistic, and they're bipolar, and they're all messed up. And you're there doing your music therapy singing to these kids and letting them express their hopes and dreams for their life. 13 kids. And it's okay. It was a good thing to do. And I'm still figuring out what's mine and what's not mine to do. And I think it's a lifelong process, don't you?
Yes.
Wait a minute, you're blind? Mind blown. Kenny, I just want to reach over and you just make me want to love you so bad. Because you said everything that I have. I mean, this is like my journey too, in a lot of ways.
Sure.
I've never heard anybody say it's better than just right then. I want to go run the marathon now because of what you just said.
A lot of y'all have been to those places, haven't you?
Yes.
Well, you know, the thing that you talk about, that pressure, that to whom much is given, much is expected, that's been drummed, and there's certainly truth in that statement. But, you know, when you do have those moments where you don't live up to your own expectations and life throws you that curveball, as a preacher's kid who controlled that facade, you feel like you've let God down because you didn't quite, don't look like the back of an offering envelope anymore. You know, you don't have the little Norman Rockwell experience.
Yep.
And oh no, I've blown my one chance. So I know what you're talking about, and that idea of the major work, or and Brad Nix is in the room, and he and I, because we work in the same office, we have this conversation a lot. He comes out of academia. I kind of decided not to go that route, but we still have that baggage and luggage that we drag around. That education frees you, it gives you so much, but it also hands you something you have to let go of.
So I'm curious, go around the room, what are you thinking of, what are you present to right now, what are you thinking of, what's in your head? So, anybody start?
I would like to say I wish that the new kids in college graduating now from seminary or could be in here and listen to us. Because they're the ones that right now, some of our dear friends we brought up to this conference to help open doors for them, just to see what's out there in their choice. They're, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I know I want to be in a church. I know I'm called to be in the church, but I don't know which direction to go.
They're paralyzed, paralysis of analysis.
Because they, in their minds or in the world, that they think it has to be in the box.
And photoshopped and perfect. I mean, it's
Lights and smoke, and I'm not talking contemporary or traditional. I'm just saying they think it has to be a certain way. And I feel like if we could all find a couple of those kids in our lives or our world and say, what do you want to see in the church? What do you enjoy? Is it just working with kids? Is it working with instrumentalists? Is it helping someone put up classroom art for the little Sunday school, vacation Bible school? Then encourage them in that, because that's all in serving. It's not necessarily being, like Ken said, the best choir in North Dallas or whatever. It's God's work, and God even went with the little people to give them their fish and their bread. That was work too, as opposed to the healing.
So others of you, what are you present to? What's happening mentally? What's your head saying? Don't be silent. Y'all are tumbling, y'all are worship leaders. What are you thinking?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm 68 and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up.
Well,
I'm still looking at tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the fellow that I know real well at this conference said, "Aren't you ever going to retire?" And, you know, he was joking because he's kind of the same age. But I said, "No, I'm still looking forward to tomorrow. I'm still trying. I'm going to do something else." You know,
Musicians don't retire, they just go from bar to bar. Oh, I've been at the musical.
Oh, Joe, stop whining now.
It was so good until then.
That is hilarious.
Well, don't retire. Why do you have to? Well, because they tell
they
you
might
that.
ask me to sometime.
Well,
But I like what I'm doing, and I'm, you know, Christmas is coming up again, and we're going to do something bigger this year.
yeah.
And so I don't know what's next. You know, I've gotten into art, I've gotten into various other things, and I'm still trying to figure it out.
So
Even though I get the idea that I'm supposed to be
yeah.
stepping back. You
So
know?
anybody in the room, what would you say to your younger self? One sentence. One sentence. What would you say?
Pay attention.
Oh, that's good.
Don't
And
skip
I'm her
class.
But that is so huge. Pay attention. Show up. We do this retreat for our for musicians in the summer called Interlude. And one of the things that Paula, our facilitator, says is show up with all of you. Show up. Because you won't believe what can happen. Anybody else? What would you say to your younger self?
Do all to the glory of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I would say it's going to be okay.
Aha.
And
Yeah.
say more once in life.
Yeah, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
At age 83, I probably would say you may have to adapt. You may not be the one in control. I've been in mission churches with actual sawdust floors. I've been in churches with marvelous choral broad programs. I am now in a contemporary setting where I could either pout and talk to everybody about how bad the music is, or I can look around at the congregation and I can see they are worshiping. Maybe I better adapt. And it's been a blessing to me. It's not the music that I prefer, but it has been and I don't even know how to say this, a blessing to me for God to show me that it's okay. I say listen to the text, but as I am with my contemporaries in our Bible study classes, and it's
Yeah.
Could you repeat that?
Can you repeat that one right there? How do you spell that?
But it's one of those, just whatever they did. No, but it has blessed, God has blessed me in allowing me to feel okay with it.
Four words. It's not about you.
Yes, it's the others, and it's so to the young people, you may have to adapt somewhere along the way, but it's okay.
Ken,
God will.
one time I was talking to a composer friend of mine, and we were a good group of people, and they said something really interesting about your music, that you only really ever write just one song. And it's a continuation, so that each little moment of it is part of this continuing song. But you don't write one and maybe my next one will be better. No, because this first note, and this is what I didn't put it in the letter, but I was thinking of my musical experiences as a 10-year-old, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I was learning the minuet in G at age 6 or 7. If I hadn't learned the minuet in G, I could never have played the Prokofiev Third Piano. I could never be where I am right now. And that was just as sacred as the next note I will write. And so to look at your composition, your life as a composition, you can't remove any of it without it just sort of falling apart and not being true. And I thought that was just brilliant because it takes a lot of pressure off you, realizing that even the failures, the ones that are stillborn and not going anywhere, are informing that next effort. And then you'll be on a mountaintop, and then the valley comes, and it's all part of that being wonderfully in process, and yet wild and unruly in a way. And that's what makes it exciting and joyful. If you try to control it, I've learned, but I still have to keep telling myself to allow for that spontaneity, I guess.
It's a question. Are you all, is anybody in the room conscious of a thread that seems to run through your life? That maybe starting when you were a kid, a particular passion or a particular interest or a particular kind of thing that reoccurs again in all of your relationships? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody want to comment on that?
Mine, even though I'm not really musical, but it is music. When I was in second grade, I had my second grade teacher had me go around to every classroom in the school and sing a solo because she thought I had a good voice. And I sang Heart of My Heart and Wanted. And of course my sister was 5 years older than me, and she's in the same school, and she was so embarrassed with crying. But I was in chorus in grammar school. I was in chorus in high school. There's always been music.
What about Carousel? He sings it all the
Oh,
time.
I was in carousel, but I do not read music. I know nothing about music theory. But I just, and you know, I've been in, well, Diane and I, we've been in auditioned choirs. I couldn't sight read Happy Birthday, but I was able to get into an audition choir. And it's like, serious?
Others in the room.
And someone said to me, well, why do you like music so much? And I said, because fat people can sing. You know, going through like always being teased, I said, I love it because fat people can sing.
Others in the room, a thread maybe that has run through your life that has been, that comes back in time and time again.
Can I ask you a question? Oh, somebody. What thread led you to know that you could do and be and give so much to others through your music?
Oh, well, when I was in high school, I had a crush on a girl, and I was sitting in the choir room at lunch hour, and a bunch of students hanging around there. She walked in, and I thought, this is my chance. And I made up a song. I thought, oh, wow. That's kind of how things started, and then my interest in stories, led me in a direction to tell stories and stuff. So those are some of the beginning experiences. I'm really curious about others in the room. One of those things that you see, yeah, this is kind of what led me. I would say to my younger self, this is what led me where I am. You are entirely too quiet.
Well, mine reminded me when you said you were teased. Mine was my red hair. And as a child, of course, you're always teased and carrot top, and I'd rather be dead than red in the head. I mean, you know, just kids. You know? But I always hated it. I hated my red hair until I got into college. And I realized it set me apart from all the other singers that were auditioning for things, because they didn't remember my name, they didn't remember necessarily what I sang, but they called me the redhead. And I soon got to realize that it is sort of a blessing to me now, but as a kid, it wasn't. So that's that little teeny tiny thread that I've had to deal with. I mean, it's minuscule in regards to things, but as a child, it helped form me.
And you got to be the mermaid who's redheaded.
Well,
They didn't hurt.
I did.
You know, I don't talk about this a lot, but one of the biggest defining moments really in me, in my life, and it really kind of put me on the path that, you know, was really made for me. Many years of my life, and even in fact really sometimes to this day, I've dealt with a right hand injury as a pianist. And when I was going through college, I've never been a pianist like Joe Martin was a pianist, but I was a pretty darn good one, and came down with a really severe right hand problem from playing, and really to the point that I really only could play about 2 minutes a day. Really, that's all I could handle. And there are so many spiritual lessons that God taught me in that. I was coming up under a teacher that really wanted me to go and do contests, and I really had kind of gotten to the point, and this is a culmination really of my whole life in music, where I really, the thread with me is I had learned, and I still fall into this trap now if I'm not careful, to identify my self-worth and how well it is that I do what I do. And in college, if I played really well with a piano lesson or had a great piano lesson, I was just almost arrogant. And if it didn't go that well, then I just thought, find a bridge and I'm going to jump off it. And beyond that, I had kind of made being a good pianist almost a little bit of an idol in my life. And, you know, God has a way that when you put something on the throne of your life other than Him, if you don't remove it, He has ways of removing it for you, if you're a believer. And so I think He let me walk through that. And I realized it really had a lot of moments where I had to say, gosh, life's probably not going to turn out the way I imagined it would. And I don't know if I'll really ever be able to play the piano again, because I'm not exaggerating when I say I really only could play about 2 or 3 minutes a day, and then I'd have excruciating pain. And that went on all through my 20s for about 10 years. And so I had to come to the point where I realized, you know, if I never touch a piano again or never do anything in music again, that's not what defines me. And like Randall said, it's going to be okay. And I am who I am because of who I am in Christ, and not because of who I am as a pianist. Now, the wonderful side of that is that somewhere in my 30s, when I was about 30 or 31, and still kind of coming out of this and going through it, not coming out of it yet, but going through it, somehow or another a light went off in my head, and I thought, well, you know what, you've always loved kind of writing and being creative. Gosh, if you can't play it, maybe you can write it and arrange it. And that's kind of what changed my whole path. And God was very gracious, and I do play as much as I want to play, and I play pain-free. I never play again like I played in college, but that doesn't really bother me. All I need to do is play just as I am on Sunday morning, and that's enough. And God has just kind of given me a life. You know, if you, and I know I've talked a lot, so I'll shut up very soon, but if you had told me when I was 20 or 21 and going through college, that when I'm in my 40s I would be writing music for church choirs and editing at a publishing company, the fact is I probably would have felt like a failure if you told me that in my 20s, because that was just not what I envisioned my life was going to be. If I wasn't teaching piano at some mid to large size university and playing a Beethoven concerto, then it would have just been all, not worth living. But the fact is, here I am in my 40s, and it's the best job I've ever had, and I just live in this incredible sense of blessing that this is what God's prepared for me all these years. And my life, I often think of it as just kind of this tapestry that going through it, you really don't understand it. You know, if you ever see, like this is a thing that I use a lot when I speak in front of people. I love mountains, lived in Colorado for a while, and when you're going up a mountain, you see little lakes, and you see hills and valleys, and you see them through the trees, and, you know, they're beautiful to look at, but when you get up to the top, you kind of look over the vista, and you can see how they all join together to create a landscape that you can never imagine when you're on the ground, or when you're going up the mountain. And so as I go through my life, things haven't always made sense as I'm going through them. And I'm only in my 40s. I hope I have many, many more years ahead. So in my 50s, I might come back with a different story. But right now, what dominated my life for so long, a hand injury, just ended up being the best thing that could ever happen.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. I'll bet you there are people in this room who would identify with that. Maybe not a hand injury, but something that handicapped you, something that disabled you, something that made you think, you know, I mean, our friend David Keith, who is the dean of the School of Music at Mercer University, tells the story about growing up in a small town in Missouri, and his parents' only interest for him was athletics. And he had no concept that he would be able to go into music. He grew up in a terrible school system. Went to college in Missouri and was obsessed with the fact that he had come from such a small and handicapped background. You know, there's just so little I can do. Well, he's the dean of a music school. I mean,
You know, look at all these stories. I mean, you know, from broken hands to blindness to red hair to age to my good looks, they're all, you know, different, you know, burdens that we would sing normally, but they become fantastic.
a sick man. A sick man. Do not listen to him.
As we do. As we bring this session to a close, I will say this. I think I often tell students that we are as defined by our losses and our challenges as we are by our successes. And at this stage, I believe that we are more defined by the things that don't come, the doors that don't open, the contest we didn't win, the job we didn't get chosen for, what didn't work. If we use it well, then we are most defined by that. Recently in our church, for our Lenten season, we had a series called Stewardship of Pain. And it came from a Frederick Buechner quote where Frederick Buechner, a person mentioned to him at one point in his life and said, "It really looks like when I hear your story, it seems like you've been a very good steward of your pain." And I've really thought about that a lot. How are we able to use pain to shape us? And we all see and we know people around us who have experienced immense pain, and the pain has defined them, and they live in an angry, dark space, and they have never let the pain do something important for them, or let that scar define them in a positive way, or the scar become beautiful. But I think we all know other people who have used their pain, and we've heard it here, we've heard it around the room, and we could hear from every person in this room. We've allowed our pain in some way to be redeeming, and we have used it for good.
Have you ever thought, I never thought about it, but it occurred to me that Jesus kept his scars after, I mean, he had a resurrected body. He could have certainly made himself a pair of new hands and a side, but he kept his scars, and that just blows my mind. We try to hide them as best we can, and the Savior just, you know, the Creator of the universe kept them. I just stewardship of yours.
And I think it's the blemishes that people in our churches want to see. And I think it's the way they believe that we're real. And I think we spend often the first half of our life trying to prove to everybody that we're perfect. And we're not. And we're not going to be. And I ask for your grace in being less perfect. And I think many others of us would want the same thing, to just be able to be who we are. I'm often told students that in my world, in academia, I go to work every single day and walk into a building where there's someone in that building that can do every single thing that I can do better than I do it.
Yep.
Every single component of my musical world and even thought world and intellect, somebody is better at it than I am. So the only chance I have is the rare combination that I'm willing to try most anything. That's about all I have. And I have a lot of little bitty things that I can do and that I actually love to do. And that's the contribution I can make. But I often tell students, so focus what's yours, focus, and that's a theme you've heard up here, is what is yours to do, what is mine to do, what is Nan's to do, and on around the Brad area, what is yours to do, and embrace that, and love that. And I think the more we can learn to do that, the quicker we can get to some place of peacefulness.
Richard Rohr said, the perfect word for all of you who have people in your musical world who are not dealing well with their pain. Richard Rohr says, pain that is not transformed is transmitted. Wow, that's a breakthrough right there.
And let's be dismissed on that.
Yes, have a good night.
Yes.
Wow.